Alpen Pharmaceuticals in association with Higher Secondary Principals Forum.
Good day, students. So today we will be starting with the second chapter of the supplementary reader, which is called The Tiger King by Kalki. Let us learn a little about the author first. Ramaswamy Krishnamurthy, better known by his pen name Kalki, was an Indian writer, journalist, poet, critic and Indian independence activist. His writings include over 120 short stories, 10 novellas, 5 novels, 3 historical romances, editorial and political writings and hundreds of film and music reviews. Let us first look at the theme of the story. Through this satirical story, the author rightly portrays how human beings subject innocent animals or other beings to untold torture and death, merely to fulfill their own whims and fancies. The author strikes home the message that the ruler's primary duty should be the welfare of the citizens. A strong message to maintain the ecological balance is also given through this story. Let us take a look at the different characters of the story. The first character is the Crown Prince, a 10-day-old baby who later becomes the Maharaja of Pratibandhapuram. The second is the Tiger King. He is the hero of the story, the Maharaja of Pratibandhapuram. The next character is the chief astrologer, a royal foreteller of the state court. You have the Durai. Durai here stands for a Tamil word which means the chief or the leader. In the chapter, Durai is a word used for the British high-ranking officer. Durai Sani is the wife of the British high-ranking officer, and we have the Diwan, who is the chief administrative officer of the Maharaja. So students, get on your books and let's read. The Maharaja of Pratibandhapuram is the hero of this story. He may be identified as His Highness Jamedar General Kiledar Major Satavyagraha Samahari Maharaja Dhiraj Vishwa Bhuvan Samrat Sir Jilani Jang Jang Bahadur MAD ACTC or CRCK. But this name is often shortened to the Tiger King. So the writer here introduces us to the main character of the story, the king of Pratibandhapuram. He is the hero of this story and his bravery is emphasized by the so many titles that he has. But to sum it all up, he is given the title of the Tiger King. And we shall soon find out why he is so called. Let us continue. I have come forward to tell you why he came to be known as Tiger King. I have no intention of pretending to advance only to end in a strategic withdrawal. Even the threat of a Stuka bomber will not throw me off track. The Stuka, if it likes, can beat a hasty retreat from my story. Here are a few difficult words, students. Please pay attention. Pretending means behaving as to make it appear that something is the case when in fact it is not. Strategic means calculated. Stuka bomber is a term that was coined by the Germans. In fact, the Stuka bomber was a German aircraft, a German bombing aircraft which was used during the Second World War. The speciality of this aircraft was that it has a very good aim. So here the writer is telling us that he wants to tell us more about the promising character, the Tiger King himself, but he says that even as he continues, if there is any distraction that comes his way, even if the Stuka bomber comes his way, he will not really go off track. So he will soon reveal to all of us why the Tiger King was so called. Right at the start, it is imperative to disclose a matter of vital importance about the Tiger King. Everyone who reads of him will experience the natural desire to meet a man of his indomitable courage face to face. But there is no chance of its fulfillment. As Bharat said to Ram about Dasharath, the Tiger King has reached his final abode of all living creatures. In other words, the Tiger King is dead. Look at the new words there, children. Indomitable means undefeatable. Final abode is the final residence of the soul, which means either heaven, or today you can say it could be even hell. So the writer is telling us here that the moment you read about the Tiger King, everybody feels excited to meet the Tiger King, but sadly, he says, this meeting will not happen, it will not take place because the Tiger King is not living anymore, he is already dead. The manner of his death is a matter of extraordinary interest. It can be revealed only at the end of the tale. The most fantastic aspect of his demise was that as soon as he was born, astrologers had foretold that one day the Tiger King would actually have to die. Now, demise is not really a new word. You must have seen in the papers, sad demise. So, demise refers to a death. Foretelling, foretold is a prediction that is made, or foretold is to predict. So, the manner in which the Tiger King died, the sad demise of the Tiger King is what is very interesting in this chapter. So, the writer tells us that I would like to tell you about the death of the Tiger King, but he says that just when the Tiger King was born, there was a prediction that was made by the foreteller, by the fortune teller, and he stated that one day he has to die. So, according to the writer, this is a very meaningless prediction that is made, because everybody who comes to birth has to die. None of us are immortal. Let me continue. The child will grow up to become the warrior of warriors, hero of heroes, champion of champions. But they bit their lips and swallowed hard. When compelled to continue, the astrologers came out with it. This is a secret which should not be revealed at all, and yet we are forced to speak out. The child born under this star one day will have to meet its death. So now the writer is giving us an elaborate description of what really happened, and he tells us that the fortune tellers, the astrologers told the royal court that the little boy, the king, the future king is going to be a brave warrior, a hero, a champion, but there was a lot of reluctance that they had as they continued with the prediction. They said that this child is born during a particular star, which means he is going to meet his death one day. Again, this prediction turned out to be very meaningless because, like I said before, none of us are immortal. All of us who have come to birth have to die. At that very moment, a great miracle took place. An astonishing phrase emerged from the lips of the 10-day-old Jilani Jung Jung Bahadur. O wise prophets! Everyone stood transfixed in stupefaction. They looked wildly at each other. O wise prophets, it was I who spoke. This time there were no grounds for doubt. It was the infant boy just 10 days ago who had enunciated the words so clearly. The chief astrologer took off his spectacles and gazed intently at the little baby. All those who are born will one day have to die. We don't need your predictions to know that. There would be some sense in it if you tell us the manner of death. The royal infant uttered these words in his little squeaky voice. So students, what happens now is a miracle. You know the 10-day-old little boy, Jilani Jung Jung Bahadur, the future Tiger King, he speaks and he asks the astrologers to give him the reason how his death is going to occur. It was really astonishing, it was really surprising, everybody was in a state of shock because a boy who is merely 10 days old could speak, and he could speak clearly, not just clearly, his thoughts were very, very clear and precise. So he happens to tell the astrologer, I want to know the reason, I want to know how death is going to come to me, and only then I will believe your prediction, and only then your prediction is going to make some sense. The chief astrologer placed his finger on his nose in wonder. A baby barely 10 days old opens its lips in speech. Not only that, it also raises intelligent questions. Incredible. Rather like the bulletins issued by the War Office than facts. The chief astrologer took his finger off his nose and fixed his eyes upon the little prince. The prince was born in the hour of the bull. The bull and the tiger are enemies. Therefore, death comes from the tiger, he explained. So children, what happens here is that the chief astrologer is still in awe of how a boy who is just 10 days old could speak so very well. And he ultimately reveals the reason to the court, and he tells them that this particular boy is born during the hour of the bull. Now if you go by the Hindu culture, we have something called as the Rashi Chakra. So the bull here refers to the Vrishab Rashi. So because the little boy was born during the hour of the bull, he was told that the bull and the tigers are enemies, and so he would meet death by means of a tiger. In other words, a tiger would take his life. You may think that Crown Prince Jung Jung Bahadur was thrown into a quake when he heard the word tiger. That was exactly what did not happen. As soon as he heard it pronounced, the Crown Prince gave a deep growl. Terrifying words emerged from his lips. Let tigers beware. This account is only a rumor rife in Pratibandhapuram, but with hindsight we may conclude it was based on some truth. Now, under normal circumstances, when somebody tells you about death, maybe your death or somebody else's death, you are first going to be very shocked. But here, when the little boy learns that he is going to meet his death by means of a tiger, he is not at all scared. He in fact proclaims that let the tigers now beware of him. Let's continue, students. We are now on the second part of the story. Crown Prince Jung Jung Bahadur grew taller and stronger day by day. No other miracle marked his childhood days apart from the event already described. The boy drank the milk of an English cow, was brought up by an English nanny, tutored in English by an Englishman, saw nothing but English films, exactly as the crown princes of all the other Indian states did. When he came of age at 20, the state which had been with the court of wards until then came into his hands. So what happens now, students, is that during his childhood there has been only one remarkable event, and the event has been that of the prediction made by the astrologer, by the fortune teller. He has had a very, very normal childhood, but he has got the best of everything in his childhood. See, we are told here he drank the milk of an English cow, he was brought up by an English governess, a nanny is a governess. He was taught English lessons by an Englishman, and he watched nothing but English films. So this child has got the best of everything, just like other crown princes in India. And when he was 20 years of age, it was time for him to be crowned as the prince, as the king of Pratibandhapuram. You can see the picture there. But everyone in the kingdom remembered the astrologer's prediction. Many continued to discuss the matter. Slowly, it came to the Maharaja's ears. There were innumerable forests in Pratibandhapuram state. They had tigers in them. The Maharaja knew the old saying, "You may kill even a cow in self-defense." There could certainly be no objection to killing tigers in self-defense. The Maharaja started out on a tiger hunt. Now we all know that when there is a prediction that is made, you might forget it, but it is always going to remain in the back of your mind. Now here, since the prediction was made about the king himself, it was the subject, it was the people of the kingdom who were relentlessly talking about the same matter. They were talking about what is it that will happen next. So the king came down to a conclusion that he will now start going for tiger hunts, and he did not go to any other place, but he started hunting for tigers in Pratibandhapuram itself. So he started his tiger hunting expedition. The Maharaja was thrilled beyond a measure when he killed his first tiger. He sent for the state astrologer and showed him the dead beast. "What do you say now?" he demanded. "Your Majesty may kill 99 tigers in exactly the same manner." But the astrologer dawned. "But what? Speak without fear. But you must be very careful with the 100th tiger. What if the 100th tiger were killed also?" So now here, the moment the king manages to kill the first tiger, he is very happy, he is very excited, because he can see that he is getting closer to his goal, he is getting closer to his ambition. He was told that he is going to meet his death by means of a tiger. It is going to be a tiger that is going to take his life. So according to the king, if there are no tigers, he will be immortal, he will never meet death. So here he goes on an expedition, he goes on killing tigers, he kills the first tiger, and he wants to make his point very, very evident, very, very clear to the astrologer. So he sends for the astrologer. When the astrologer comes, he tells the astrologer that you may kill 99 tigers. So the astrologer now is being very, very precise in telling the king which tiger is going to take his life. So he tells him that you may manage to kill 99 tigers, but the 100th one is going to be the crucial one for you. But the tiger king now is so confident by killing one tiger that he feels he will be able to kill all 100. And you can see this from the last statement that he makes. What if the 100th tiger were also killed? Let's continue. Then I will tear up all my books on astrology, set fire to them, and I shall cut off my tuft, crop my hair short, and become an insurance agent. The astrologer finished on an incoherent note. So here you find that the tiger king is trying to provoke, he is trying to challenge the astrologer, and he is trying to challenge the study of astrology that the astrologer has done for the past so many years. And with the confidence of the tiger king, the astrologer tells him, if you win in this challenge, or if you manage to kill all 100 tigers, and if you are safe, he tells him, I will cut my hair short, I will get rid of my tuft, and I will change my profession from an astrologer, from a fortune teller, from a pandit. In other words, I will become an insurance agent. Students, we are now heading to the third part of the story. Please follow. From that day onwards, it was celebration time for all the tigers inhabiting Pratibandhapuram. The state banned tiger hunting for anyone except the Maharaja. a proclamation was issued to the effect that if anyone dared to fling so much as a stone to a tiger, all his wealth and property would be confiscated. Now students, you need to pay attention. How mean can a ruler be? How mean can a king be? You have an example here. The king now, instead of thinking of his subjects, becomes so selfish that he wants to kill all the tigers in Pratibandhapuram, and he comes up with a notification that nobody will be allowed to even throw a stone at the tiger, and if it is found that anybody has even flung a stone at the tiger, that person's property and wealth will be confiscated. So, with this kind of a ruler, we don't know what will happen to the kingdom. Let's continue. The Maharaja vowed he would attend to all the matters only after killing 100 tigers. Initially, the king seemed well set to realize his ambition. Not that he faced no dangers. There were times when the bullet missed its mark. The tiger leapt on him and he fought the beast with his bare hands. Each time it was the tiger king, the Maharaja, who won. So what happens now is, the tiger king becomes more and more ambitious about reaching his goal. And what is his goal now? He wants to kill all the 100 tigers. He decides, he takes a vow that he is going to attend to any other problem in the state whatsoever until and unless he has achieved his target of killing 100 tigers. Now in the journey of his hunting the tigers, in the tiger hunting expedition, there are times when he faces many problems. Sometimes the bullet mark is missed, sometimes the tiger leaps on him. But the bravery of the tiger king is so much, as predicted before. He has even fought with the tiger bare-handed, and it is always the tiger king who has been victorious. Let's continue. At another time, he was in danger of losing his throne. A high-ranking British officer visited Pratibandhapuram. He was very fond of hunting tigers and fonder of being photographed with the tigers he had shot. As usual, he wished to hunt tigers in Pratibandhapuram, but the Maharaja was firm in his resolve. He refused permission. I can organize any other hunt. You may go on a boar hunt. You may conduct a mouse hunt. We are ready for a mosquito hunt. But tiger hunt, that's impossible. The British officer's secretary sent word to the Maharaja through the Diwan that the Durai himself did not have to kill the tiger. The Maharaja could do the actual killing. What was important to the Durai was a photograph of himself holding the gun and standing over the tiger's carcass. But the Maharaja would not agree even to this proposal. If relented now, what would he do if other British officers turned up for tiger hunts? So you see, the king was almost on the verge of losing his kingdom, and he was about to lose his kingdom to a British officer. Now the British officer was very fond of tiger hunting, and he wanted to hunt for a tiger in Pratibandhapuram. But one tiger hunted by the British officer would mean the count of the tiger king would go down by 1, and the tiger king would not agree to this proposal. So much so that there was the secretary of the British officer who told him that you can hunt for the tiger. The British officer only wants to take a photograph with the dead body of the tiger. Yet it was the tiger king who did not agree to this proposal. What happens next is, the reason why the tiger king does not agree is because he might allow permission to one British officer. But what if there are more British officers that turn up? if such a thing happens, the tiger count that he is supposed to keep, you know, his main aim is to kill 100 tigers. When he has killed 100 tigers, he knows that he is going to be out of danger. And that is the reason why he does not permit, he does not allow any British officer to take charge of tiger hunting. Let's continue. Because he prevented a British officer from fulfilling his desire, the Maharaja stood in danger of losing his kingdom itself. The Maharaja and the Diwan held deliberations over this issue. As a result, a telegram was dispatched forthwith to a famous British company of jewelers in Calcutta. Send samples of expensive diamond rings of different designs. Some 50 rings arrived. The Maharaja sent the whole lot to the British officer's good lady. The king and the minister expected the Duraisani to choose 1 or 2 rings and send the rest back. Within no time at all, the Duraisani sent her reply, "Thank you very much for your gifts." In 2 days, a bill of 3 lakh rupees came from the British jewelers. The Maharaja was happy that though he had lost 3 lakhs, he managed to retain his kingdom. So students, here you see the king is gradually losing track of everything. He has already lost track of his subjects because he has sent a notification to the kingdom that it is only he who can continue tiger hunting in the kingdom. When the British officer arrives and tells him that I want to hunt for tigers, he gives him a red signal. He tells him straight away that you cannot hunt for tigers. And now what does he do? He tries to convince the lady, his good lady. He tries to send gifts to the Duraisani, and when he sends about 50 diamond rings to the Duraisani, what she does is she keeps all 50 and a bill of about 3 lakhs is sent to the king. The king does not really mind the money that he has lost because he has managed to do both. He has safeguarded his kingdom and also he has managed to keep the tigers to himself for hunting. Let's continue. We are on part 4. The Maharaja's tiger hunts continued to be highly successful. Within 10 years, he was able to kill 70 tigers. And then, as unforeseen, Hurdle brought his mission to a standstill. The tiger population became extinct in the forests of Pratibandhapuram. Who knows whether the tigers practiced birth control or committed harakiri or simply ran away from the state because they desired to be shot by British hands alone. So now the Tiger King manages to kill about 70 tigers in 10 years. So that's roughly about 7 tigers a year. Can you imagine how the population of tigers must have been affected there? So gradually the population of tigers was getting extinct in Pratibandhapuram and there were no more tigers that were found in the kingdom. So the author here is adding a bit of humor by telling us about things like birth control. He makes a mention, he says that maybe the tigers were committing suicide or maybe they were practicing birth control or maybe they were choosing to be shot, to be dead by British officers alone. Let's continue, students. One day the Maharaja sent for the Diwan. Diwan Sahib, aren't you aware of the fact that 30 tigers still remain to be shot down by this gun of mine? He asked, brandishing his gun. Shuddering at the sight of the gun, the Diwan cried out, "Your Majesty, I am not a tiger. Which idiot would call you a tiger? No, and I am not a gun. You are neither a tiger nor gun, Diwan Sahib. I summoned you here for a different purpose. I have decided to get married." So now, students, there is a different problem that comes to the king. And what is the problem? The king realizes that he still needs to hunt for another 30 tigers to complete his target. Let us just go to a bit of maths. We know that the Tiger King was crowned as the king when he was 20. It's been 10 years that he has been hunting tigers, so his age is now 30, which is quite a desirable age to get married. And what does he do now? He calls the Diwan and he tells the Diwan that I want to get married. The Diwan initially hesitates a little, he is a little reluctant, because the kind of questions, the kind of a conversation that goes on between the king and the Diwan feels that the king has become so crazy to hunt for tigers. If he does not get tigers to be hunted, he might as well shoot the Diwan then and there. But when he listens to the Tiger King telling him that he wants to get married, let us see what he has to say. The Diwan began to babble even more. Your Majesty, I have 2 wives already. If I marry you, don't talk nonsense. Why should I marry you? What I want is a tiger. Your Majesty, please think it over. Your ancestors were married to the sword. If you like, marry a gun. The Tiger King is more than enough for this state. It does not need a tiger queen as well. So here now, the king has a plan. We don't know what the plan exactly is, but even in the pretext of getting married, he still has the same point running in the back of his mind, that is killing 100 tigers. So he is talking about tigers again, and the Diwan feels that the Tiger King is planning to marry a tiger instead of marrying a girl. So the Diwan tells him that we don't need another tiger queen in our kingdom. Let us see what he has to say next. The Maharaja gave a loud crack of laughter. I am not thinking of marrying either a tiger or a gun, but a girl from all the ranks of human beings. First, you may draw up statistics of tiger populations in different native states. Next, you may investigate if there is a girl I can marry in the royal family of a state with a large tiger population. The Diwan followed his orders. He found the right girl from a state which possessed a large number of tigers. Maharaja Jang Bahadur killed 5 or 6 tigers each time he visited his father-in-law. In this manner, 99 tiger skins adorned the walls of the reception hall in the Pratibandhapuram palace. So students, just like I was telling you, the king only thought of killing 100 tigers. So even in getting married, there was a hidden motive. And what was the hidden motive? He wanted to look out for a kingdom, he wanted to look out for a princess where there is a lot of tiger population. So he tells the Diwan to look out for different places, do the homework, see places where there is ample tiger population, look out for one such place where there is a royal princess whom he can marry, and the Diwan rightly follows his orders and he manages to find a queen for the Tiger King. What the Tiger King does next is, every time he would visit his father-in-law, he would hunt about 5 or 6 tigers. Ultimately, the countdown had reached 99 tigers. So students, as per the astrologer, he was falling short only of 1 tiger. So it was the last tiger, as the astrologer had said, which would be the crucial one, which would be the deciding one whether he is going to live or die. So let us see how he manages to get the 100th tiger. We are on part 5, students. Please follow. The Maharaja's anxiety reached a fever pitch when there remained just 1 tiger to achieve his tally of 100. He had this one thought during the day and the same dream at night. By this time, the tiger farms had run dry in his father-in-law's kingdom. It became impossible to locate tigers anywhere, yet only 1 more was needed. if he could kill just that one single beast, the Maharaja would have no fears left. He could give up tiger hunting altogether. But he had to be extremely careful with the last tiger. What had the late astrologer said? Even after killing 99 tigers, the Maharaja should beware of the 100th. True enough, the tiger was a savage beast after all. One had to be wary of it. But where was the 100th tiger to be found? It seemed easier to find tiger's milk than a live tiger. So what happens now was, as he reached 99, he was getting even more closer to his target. It is like when you have already answered your prelims, when you are just 1 month away from your 12th standard board exams, you are also excited because you know that you are finally going to be a 12th pass student, you are going to achieve your goal, your target. So for the Tiger King also, he was getting closer to his target. He was 99, he had already managed to kill 99 tigers. It was just the last one which he was told by the astrologer is going to be the difficult one, he is going to be the crucial tiger. But for the Tiger King now, it was difficult to find that last tiger. And the Tiger King had already decided, if he had found the 100th tiger, if he had killed the 100th tiger, he would give up on tiger hunting altogether and there would be no more fear that he would have to face. Let's continue what happens next. Thus, the Maharaja was sunk in gloom, but soon came the happy news which dispelled that gloom. In his own state, sheep began to disappear frequently from a hillside. It was ascertained that this was not the work of Khader Main Sahib or Veerasamy Naikar, both famed for their ability to swallow sheep whole. Surely a tiger was at work. The villagers ran to inform the Maharaja. The Maharaja announced a 3-year exemption from all taxes for that village and set out on the hunt at once. The tiger was not easily found. It seemed as if it had wantonly hid itself in order to flout the Maharaja's will. The Maharaja was equally determined. He refused to leave the forest until the tiger was found. As days passed, the Maharaja's fury and obstinacy mounted alarmingly. Many officers lost their jobs. So you can see here, there is a weird kind of a pattern that is seen. The moment the villagers inform the king that a particular village has or could have tiger, automatically the king decides to exempt them from the taxes for the next 3 years. He goes there, he tries to hunt for the tiger, but he is unable to find the tiger. When he is unable to find the tiger, what does he do? He fires many of his officers. So all in all of us need to understand that the king was getting so very temperamental that his happiness and his sadness was totally dependent on that last tiger that he was about to hunt. Let's continue. One day when his rage was at its height, the Maharaja called the Diwan and ordered him to double the land tax forthwith. The people will become discontented, then our state too will fall prey to the Indian National Congress. In that case, you may resign from your post, said the king. The Diwan went home convinced that if the Maharaja did not find the tiger soon, the results could be catastrophic. He felt life returning to him only when he saw the tiger which had been brought from the People's Park in Madras and kept hidden in his house. So what happens now is that the king and his anger knows no boundaries, and the reason why the king and his anger knows no boundaries is because he has become so frustrated with the fact that he cannot manage to find the last tiger. he decides and he tells the Diwan to double the taxes, the land taxes, and it is the Diwan who tries to tell him that if you take such a hasty decision, it is going to affect our state. But the king, doesn't really care about whatever is happening. When the Diwan tells him that there will be discontent between the subjects, he tells the Diwan that it is not too far when you will have to quit your own job. So the Diwan comes up with a plan. He goes to the People's Park in Madras and he gets a tiger from there which is hidden in his house. So we all know now which is the 100th tiger for the Tiger King. Let's see what follows. At midnight, when the town slept in peace, the Diwan and his aged wife dragged the tiger into the car and shoved it into the seat. The Diwan himself drove the car straight into the forest where the Maharaja was hunting. When they reached the forest, the tiger launched its satyagraha and refused to get out of the car. The Diwan was thoroughly exhausted in his efforts to haul the beast out of the car and push it down to the ground. On the following day, the same old tiger wandered into the Maharaja's presence and stood as if in humble supplication. Master, what do you command of me? It was with boundless joy that the Maharaja took careful aim at the beast. The tiger fell in a crumpled heap. I have killed the 100th tiger. My vow has been fulfilled. The Maharaja was overcome with elation. Ordering the tiger to be brought to the capital in grand procession, the Maharaja hastened away in his car. After the Maharaja left, students please pay attention, after the Maharaja left, the hunters went to take a closer look to the tiger. The tiger looked back at them, rolling its eyes in bafflement. The men realized that the tiger was not dead. The bullet had missed it. It had fainted from the shock of the bullet whizzing past. The hunters wondered what they should do. They decided that the Maharaja must not come to know that he had missed his target. If he did, they could lose their jobs. One of the hunters took aim from a distance of 1 foot and shot the tiger. This time he killed it without missing his mark. So students, finally, killing of the 100th tiger is a plan that has been executed by the Diwan. The Diwan brings the tiger from the People's Park, Madras. He puts it in his car. He takes the tiger to the place where the Tiger King has been looking out for tigers. He allows the tiger to move about there, and when the Tiger King manages to see the tiger, his happiness knows no boundaries because he has finally managed to find the 100th tiger. What he does next is that he aims at the tiger and the tiger falls down there. He feels that the tiger is already dead, but when the hunters take a closer look at the tiger, they come to know that the tiger is still alive. But they know very well that the Tiger King would fire them from their jobs if he comes to know that the tiger was still alive. So one of the hunters shoot the tiger and the tiger is dead. Now for your understanding, according to the Tiger King, he has already achieved his target of killing 100 tigers. But in reality, he has only killed 99 tigers. So there is a grand procession of this last tiger. The tiger is brought to the capital of the city and we will see what follows next. Then, as commanded by the king, the dead tiger was taken in procession through the town and buried. A few days later, the Maharaja's son's 3rd birthday was celebrated. Until then, the Maharaja had given his entire mind over to tiger hunting. He had had no time to spend for the crown prince, but now the king turned his attention to the child. He wished to give him some special gift on his birthday. He went to the shopping center in Pratibandhapuram and searched every shop, but couldn't find anything suitable. Finally, he spotted a wooden tiger in a toy shop and decided it was the perfect gift. So once the king has achieved his target of killing 100 tigers, he now channelizes all his attention towards his family. He knows it is his son's 3rd birthday and he decides to give him a gift. He goes to every shop in Pratibandhapuram to give him a gift, but ultimately he finds a perfect gift for him, which is nothing but a wooden tiger. You can see the picture there, students. There is a wooden tiger and there is also the king and the prince and the wooden tiger. The wooden tiger cost only 2 annas and a quarter. But the shopkeeper knew that if he quoted such a low price to the Maharaja, he would be punished under the rules of the emergency. So he said, "Your Majesty, this is an extremely rare example of craftsmanship, a bargain at 300 rupees. Very good. Let this be your offering to the crown prince on his birthday," said the king, and took it away with him. On that day, father and son played with that tiny little wooden tiger. It had been carved by an unskilled carpenter. Its surface was rough. Tiny slivers of wood stood up like quills all over it. One of those slivers pierced the Maharaja's right hand. He pulled it out with his left hand and continued to play with the prince. So you can see the picture here, students. He brings a tiger for his son and he is now very busy playing with his son, and since it is a gift for his son, he decides he will not pay the shopkeeper. He gets the gift for free, and when he begins to play, because the wooden tiger is made by an unskilled carpenter, the sliver is a shaving of the wood. You know, when the wood is not smooth, you will find little shavings of wood that come up. So one such shaving pricks his hand and you can see the picture, his hand is bleeding, but what he does is he removes the sliver and he continues to play with his son. Let's see what happens next. The next day, infection flared in the Maharaja's right hand. In 4 days, it developed into a suppurating sore which spread all over the arm. 3 famous surgeons were brought in from Madras. After holding a consultation, they decided to operate. The operation took place. The 3 surgeons who performed it came out of the operation theatre and announced, the operation is successful, the Maharaja is dead. In this manner, the 100th tiger took its final revenge upon the Tiger King. So students, what happened is that according to the astrologer, it was said that the 100th tiger would be the deciding one about the life or death of the Tiger King, and it is the sliver of wood which causes a lot of pus, and the infection spreads into the right arm of the king, and there are surgeons that are brought from Madras, but none of the surgeon is successful in carrying out the operation successfully, and it is the 100th tiger that takes the life of the Tiger King. So students, for you it is to know that the title Tiger King is absolutely suitable for the chapter because it is the 100th tiger, it is not the real tiger, it is a wooden tiger which happens to be the 100th tiger which takes the life of the Tiger King. So students, let's quickly go through the questions. I had told you in the last class that when it comes to the supplementary reader, it is always the student's opinion that comes into the picture. So look at the first question. The astrologer's prediction about the death of the Tiger King came to be true. Do you agree with this statement? Explain. Now, if you agree that the statement made by the astrologer about the death of the tiger made the Tiger King think or act in a manner in such a way that he went on killing tigers. So it is all on you and it is all on your thought process. If you feel that the Tiger King should have listened to the prediction, but he could have also done away with it. He could have decided that he is not going to focus so much on it and he is going to continue doing his regular activities. Maybe he would have never had a track of which is the 100th tiger and maybe he would have never died in such a manner. On the other hand, despite the fact that he got after the tigers, he went on hunting for tigers frantically. It was the 100th tiger, which was a wooden tiger, which actually took his life. Look at the next question, students. The manner of the Tiger King's death is a matter of extraordinary interest. Comment. It is shocking to notice and see that that a non-living thing has taken the life of such a grand character like the king of Pratibandhapuram, and all this has happened because he has frantically been after tigers to kill them. So, you will have to describe the extraordinary manner in which the Tiger King met his death. How would you describe the relationship of the king and his minions? On different occasions, we have seen that the Tiger King has totally been neglecting his kingdom. We have seen that his happiness and anger is totally subjected to the amount of tigers that he has been killing. When the villagers tell him that there could be a tiger in this particular province, it is that he decides to exempt that particular village from all the taxes. On the other hand, when he realizes that there is no tiger that he can find, he immediately fires his officers. So, his relation with the minions or with his subjects is not a very cordial one. He has no personal contact with his subjects, and because he has only been focusing on how he will achieve his target. If you were in place of the Tiger King, would you give the Duraisani a bribe? Now, like I said before, it is all on you to think and decide what you would have done. Given me an option, I think wasting 3 lakh rupees on the Duraisani was a bad choice, and also killing the tigers would be a bad choice. If I were the Tiger King, I would have surely been concentrating more on how to uplift my kingdom and how to keep my subjects happy. So, students, that was the second chapter from your supplementary reader for the first formative of your exams. Thank you.
Prudent Scholars, powered by Lupin Pharmaceuticals.